What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Rip in Peace on Hammerland. Brian, let's hear the invitation.
Void Thrashing is the map where we have to destroy 10 Void Thrashers before they destroy Sergeant Hammer's completely useless fortress. Each set we destroy reveals the next, unless we take too long and they spawn anyway. Propagators spawn from enemy buildings. They steal your units and turn them into more Propagators. Enemy heroes make your nearby units unresponsive when they die.
Alright, so we have Edwin Home and Joni in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Good.
Alright,
Yep,
so
great, thanks.
Edwin Home, how do we rank the commanders this week?
I mean, there's only really one mutator you're super worried about, which is Propagators. The big thing is, can you deal with the first Propagator? And then from there, it's a relatively straightforward map in terms of dealing with the props. There's 3 main channels they can come down, and as soon as you clear the limited amount of buildings out on the left and the right, then you don't have to worry about those anymore. So if you can deal with the first prop and then just play the rest of the mutation, you're good. You do want to be a little careful when you kill Propagators to not get Moment of Silenced in case there's another Propagator right behind them, but Propagators aren't too terribly scary, especially when you compare them against the 5-speed Propagators from a few weeks ago. So.
Yes. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, pretty much exactly the same. I think the biggest issue with Moment of Silence is forgetting about it until it hits you. And then, yeah, for me, about ranking commanders this week, kind of, how well they deal with props and how well they deal with the map in general.
If they can deal with it properly, they'll be very high. Something else I think should be mentioned is, I think around 15 minutes or so, they start coming in 2 at a time. So commanders that can deal with 2 Propagators at a time, or being able to zip around and dealing with one after another in quick succession, will do very well. Keep in mind, the Propagators activate Moment of Silence, so if you destroy one, but everything's disabled for the next one, that should affect your ranking as well. Anyway, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur is pretty happy this week because neither of these mutators really get in the way of initial biomass farming. You should be able to get out your Brutalisk and probably even really 2 Brutalisks by the time you have to worry about Propagators, and then just use Toxic Nests to kill the props. So do be a little careful not to spam out too many Toxic Nests during your farming. But from there, it's a pretty easy time for him. Toxic Nests, ranged units, you can deal with the Propagators without too much trouble, and you can kind of just rampage through this map as Abathur. You do want to be a little bit careful with your melee units, mainly just the Brutalisks, to be away from buildings when props spawn. But other than that, it's going to be an easy breezy week, I think. So I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I totally agree with the approach. I am mechanically nowhere near as good as ET, so I was having to be a bit careful of like brutalists like aggroing onto props and stuff when you're luring them onto toxic nests, but very minor stuff, which is all in the micro. Guardians, Devourers, Leviathans, etc. Very easy to sort of push up the sides and into the areas where the thrashers spawn, etc. So not a massively complicated one. I had Abathur in A tier, only because I felt he was slightly more mechanically complicated than some of the S tier commanders, basically. So yeah, I thought he was like a little bit more. I didn't think he completely like negated the mutation to the extent that some do.
What do you think, Edwin Home? Are you okay with A, or will you make a case for S?
I mean, that's fine. There's a lot of S this week, at least for my rankings. So I'm not too worried. There will be plenty to come behind, so I'm fine with A tier.
All right, that's fine. Abathur A tier. Prestige-wise, second one? Or no prestige?
I mean, I'd probably just go no prestige. You don't really need to deep tunnel into darkness here, and you're not going to go locusts. At least I wouldn't. So I'd probably just go P0.
No prestige. All right, let's go Abathur A tier. No prestige. Let's move on. Alarak, where do we have him?
So Alarak's another one who plays pretty much completely normally, to be honest. I think you want P3, you want the early mothership. The mothership pretty much totally like destroys props. Structure overcharge is also extremely useful. You can basically send your army off somewhere, and structure overcharge will do a significant amount of defending for you. Wrathwalkers are also excellent on this mutation because they have massive range, and then Alarak's destruction wave also really useful if stuff is just getting a little bit danger close, for pushing away. One sort of thing I found was that I was trying to like split forces up and get really clever with the sort of the defending and the attacking on this, and actually I don't think you need to. I think with Alarak just being really aggressive, having a massive death ball and just pushing it into stuff and just getting rid of the bases really quickly, and relying on structure overcharge at home is probably a better way of doing it. I had Alarak in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, I mean, I had him in A tier as well. I think, yeah, you can just be very aggressive and kind of ball your army up because you always have recall. So if you need to get home in a pinch, you can. And yeah, I mean, he has basically every tool you could ever dream of to deal with Propagators, Ascendants, and the Wrathwalkers, and Structure Overcharge, and even Alarak pushing them back. Slayers would probably do just fine this week, honestly, because you could blink out of the Moan of Silence. So I had him in A tier.
How do you guys deal with the first poop as Alarak?
Slayers probably with a Structure Overcharge.
That works. Yeah. What I personally do is have a probe patrol in front of the Propagator to basically lure it in a big old circle or hexagon, and then the whole time the overcharge is shooting at it. So don't even have to make a Slayer. But the Slayer thing works too. Anyway, Alarak 8 here. Prestige wise, want the third one?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Arcturus, where do we have him?
Arcturus has Earth Splitters, and you can just go P3, get super easy weapons out to deal with the first Propagator and every subsequent Propagator. Once you clear the buildings out, just like 4 bunkers at the bottom of the ramp of the final area guarantees that props are never going to make it past, and when units are in bunkers, they can't get Moment of Silence, so you literally don't even have to think about the Propagators at that point, and you're going to win the game pretty imminently after that because you probably have your Earth Splitters set up in the central area. Where the first Void Thrasher is. So from there, it's very easy. I had him in S tier.
What do you think, Joni?
Exactly the same. Yeah, exactly the same. I think P3 is better than P1 this week. Just you want those cheap weapons on your troopers. But exactly like ET said, hide in bunkers, use the SOs, like have a good day. Probably don't use Dogs of War, partly because you don't need to, but also because the Propagators, if you do it at the wrong time in the wrong place, then you're going to end up in more pain than you need to be. But yeah, easy S tier for me.
All right, unanimous S tier. Arcturus goes in S tier. Prestige wise, third one. Let's move on. Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis has a bit more difficulty, I think, this week. Particularly at the start, actually. Like, I think Mass Dragoons or Tempests are both like very viable strategies for this mutator. P3 Space Archons are brilliant for like taking out waves, generally softening stuff up, etc. But like it takes a lot of Dragoons to kill a Propagator right at the start. So I think those early Propagator waves are quite tough to deal with. Like you need to be pretty efficient with your macro at the start to get out enough enough units to actually have sort of a big impact. So yeah, it's just a little bit more complicated playing Artanis than some of the other commanders this week. I had him in C tier.
C tier. What do you think, Eppenholm?
Yeah, I mean, I had him in C tier. Mainly just he doesn't feel horrible on his own, except for the early game feels pretty bad. But once you get up, you're okay. But I just look at the other commanders and I'm like, well, I would much rather be playing as Abathur or Alarak or almost anyone else. So yeah, I had him in C tier.
All right, unanimous C tier. Let's put him there. Dehaka, where do we have him?
I had Dehaka pretty high up because you can always eat the first Propagator if you need to. It hurts, but you can. and then once you get out either Guardians or Creeper Hosts, then every prop from there is pretty much free. The one issue I run into sometimes, so I'd probably go Guardians personally, is the Creeper Host. Sometimes while they're doing their dive, the Propagator eats one, and then they rise back up, and then they're diving, and the Propagator eats one, and
I have
they
had
rise
that.
up, and then it times out. So I would probably recommend Guardians, just because they're very long range. You don't have to worry about Moan of Silence, and they'll be able to more constantly push through the enemy after they deal with the Propagators. You don't have to wait for the wave to come off cooldown, and you aren't worried about, like, are the Propagators coming? Can I use the Creeper Hosts against the base right now? So for those reasons, I'd probably recommend that. But yeah, past that, I'd say pretty easy S tier. Just be careful about calling in Glevig, but also yeah, the pack leaders can't get propped, so.
You can
Pretty
call
nice.
in Glevik back in your base and then just deep tunnel him to the front, so that the unit
Yes.
spawns don't get pooped.
Yes, I did say be careful. I didn't say don't do it. I just said,
All right.
Or you just wait until the props spawn and then you go, oh, they're on the other side of the map. Glevig. So
That works
there's
too.
ways to handle it.
All right. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, so I took a very similar approach, but I suspect with a different prestige. Were you using P2, ET?
Mm-hmm.
So I used P3 on this one because the most props you're going to get spawning at any one time is 2, unless you have a catastrophe. And so I basically kept both Dehakas at home, specifically with like the only purpose of eating props. And then because the pack leaders, like ET said, are not affected by propagators, or they're not affected by moment of silence either. So I was actually just using all three pack leaders together in one go to just smash into bases, and then cleaning up with basically whatever flavor you want, but sort of Tyrannosaurs, Guardians, Mutalisks,
That sounds fun.
like anything basically. Yeah, it was genuinely A, pretty fun, and B, extremely straightforward. So I had Dehaka firmly in S tier. I played P3. But yeah, I mean everything ET said, like totally exactly
All
the
right.
same principle basically.
Unanimous S tier. Let's put Dehaka in S tier. What I usually do is Dehaka is just yes, I use Creeper Host, but not on any units or buildings or Propagators. I just right click them at the Thrashers, and then they just kind of do their job. I just have the Hakas waiting at home. Maybe an Impaler if you're really that scared, but the Hakas would be fine. Anyway, yes, that's unanimous S tier. Prestige wise, second or third, it should work just fine. Even the first one if you want to, but just Creeper Hosts, I think, are the key for me. But you can use Guardians, like Edwin Holmes said, if you're that good. Anyway, let's move on. Phoenix, where do we have them?
Terrible, and I didn't make your Creeper Host, so there you go.
Yeah.
Right, so Phoenix. Phoenix was a bit rough. I will sort of defer to ET on this one in terms of how he feels about Phoenix as well. I found it super rough. Like I made it a priority to get out Warbringer and Taldarin basically, and to keep them at home and deal with the Propagators specifically. But like Moment of Silence caused problems in conjunction with the Propagators on this one. Particularly like when you got 2 at a time coming in, that was pretty ropey as well. P1 could be a consideration for like dealing with the attack waves and stuff as well, but I think I'd probably be inclined to keep my sort of stronger champions. But yeah, I didn't have time to work out like anywhere near a good solution for Phoenix. I had him in like C to D tier this week.
What do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, I had him in C tier. I'm not a huge Phoenix lover myself. It's not that I'm bad with him. It's just that I find him probably the most boring out of all of the commanders. Even more than Stukov somehow. But yeah, I think as long as you get past the first couple props, I think you'll be okay. You obviously have the Arbiter suit. You can freeze the Propagators to buy yourself some time if you need to. So he does have some CC. He can recall units over to deal with Propagators with that suit. Dragoon suit, you can spam down a Propagator, although it's kind of a waste of energy, but you can if you need to. So he's not terrible, but his best thing is Caldalis, and that's a melee unit, so that always hurts a little bit against Propagators.
Mm-hmm. So both of you have him in C?
Yep.
I'm not going to disagree because I don't have him high either. I personally have him in B, which isn't too far off from C, but I think what I would do is just do a worker wall and have a couple immortals or Oculuses behind it, and that'll keep the Propagator busy enough trying to get through the worker that it will just kind of die and, not poop anything. While the rest of your army just pushes forward. But that, it's definitely not A tier. It's not S tier, but yeah. C is fine, not too far off from where I would put. I think 2-2 and Stick Spender also put them in somewhere like C tier, if I remember that tier list. But yeah, not too far off. Both of you have in C, let's put them in C. Prestige wise, which one do you prefer?
Probably P2.
The
Because then
second
your
one?
small army is only at risk of losing your small army. You don't have to worry about your shells as much.
Yeah, I guess. All right. And besides, with the second prestige, you're going to be focusing on a few champions in front. So yeah, that's where you want the most of your power anyway. Plus, you can keep your shell farm like behind the anti-poop worker wall. So that's another thing that you got going for you. Anyway, let's move on. Han and Horner, where do you have them?
I had Han and Horner doing okay this week. Hellions do pretty well for slowing propagators and killing them. And then Moment of Silence, they're a ranged, pretty fast unit, so you should be able to avoid. Just be a little careful with your galleons because they're slower, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Mines are very helpful as well against the propagators, so you're probably going P1. You could go P2 technically and just go into battle cruisers. Those are pretty good against props as well. I don't think they're perfect, but I think they're going to have a fairly cruising time, so I had them in A tier.
Battle cruising time. Hey, what do you think, Joni?
I'm leaving after that. That was awful.
How dare you? My jokes are the best.
No, that one was ET's fault. Yeah, I found, whether it was my placement or otherwise, I found mag mines to be like less effective than props than I'd hoped they would be. I was experimenting with strike fighters and sort of hoping that you could lock on through the minimap to props, but you can't, which was really disappointing when I was fiddling around with it. I agree. I think BC's potentially Wraiths are probably. I think P2 is probably the way to go on this one. The start with P2 is pretty painful, but once you get up and running, it's not the end of the world. I didn't have them ranked as high as ET does. I had them in B tier, just purely because I don't think they're as easy to use as Abathur or Alarak.
What do you think about B tier, Edwin?
Did you use Hellions?
Yeah, Hellions are actually pretty good.
No,
they slow down the
to be
enemy
fair.
with a tar bomb.
I think if you tried Hellions, you'd say A tier. That's all.
Yeah, I did not get to experiment with these guys as much as I may have wanted to. So
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy to have them in A tier as well if you guys have tried it.
Oh, don't use Kerrigan.
Yeah, I mean-
It's a bad idea. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
they
don't upgrade the galleons. But yeah, I mean, Hellions have the slow that they can use on the props, and I mean, props are already slow enough without speed freaks. And they're, unlike most Hellions, high single target damage, so they're pretty good against propagators. So I would say that would, purely because you said you didn't try them, I would say that's probably an A tier.
Oh, no, I'm perfectly happy with that. Yeah, it's every day's a school day, so I will have to go and give that a go later.
Yeah.
I'm happy with A tier.
Anyway, let's. Oh wait, A tier. Yeah, let's put Han and Horn in A tier. Prestige wise, first one I think, or second. I think second will also work. You'll have fewer Hellions, but
You can
Valkyrie's still
get
pretty
enough
good.
Hellions. You don't need a lot of Hellions to do it. Like, 6 to 10 Hellions is going to deal with all the props the whole game, really. So,
Yeah.
You just have to micro a little bit.
Just play better. Just get good. Let's move on. Karax, where do we have him?
Karax I thought was pretty good. Karax is a pretty hands-off commander this week. 3 monoliths sorts you out for the entire game, so you can literally pop them up on each ramp, and then you're off to the races basically. If you build a bit of static defense around that, you then basically don't need to worry about attack waves either, because unless you get unlucky with your comp, it's just going to smash against it. And if you do get unlucky with the comp, then you've still got enough top bar to sort of help out. Learn the pathing for observers on this map. that was extremely helpful. And then you can literally just target down thrashers with your top bar. So I used P3. I thought it was pretty straightforward. If I'm being completely honest, I had Karax in A tier. Sorry, no, I didn't. I had him in S tier.
What do you think, Edwin?
I was gonna say you must have forgotten about Hellions again.
Karax's famous Hellions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Karax, excellent defense, which is perfect against the Propagators, and very nice offense as well. So yeah, I had him in S tier.
All right, short and sweet. Let's put Karax in S tier. Prestige-wise, third one.
Yeah, I think you want as much energy as you can get.
All right, let's move on. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
I had Kerrigan doing very well this week. P3, double tap any of the propagators, like Johnny mentioned in an earlier commander. You really shouldn't be getting to the point where you're dealing with 4 propagators at a time. So Kerrigan will be able to handle 2, especially with Omega Worms teleporting her around. Just be careful to keep your Omega Worms, give a little bit of a buffer between them and the next set of enemy buildings, so you have time. But from there, then she can still help her army because again, I mean, she kills the prop on one side of the map, snaps her fingers, and she's on the other side of the map. So it's not like you have to purely dedicate Kerrigan to propagators, and she can't help clear. She can still help clear, mobilization wave, all of that. So I think she's going to do really well, and I had her in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I wasn't quite as optimistic about her as that, although I do agree with everything that's been said. So, as per usual, I suspect a mechanical failing on my part. But yeah, definitely want P3 for Kinetic Blast. Definitely want Kerrigan in and out of Nidus Worms. I did find this to be pretty micro-intensive. And double props also potentially a bit of a nuisance. Like, I ended up sort of effectively camping Kerrigan next to the nearest Omega Worm and trying to basically whack her back into it before the first prop sort of went off with Moment of Silence, and then having to sneak her out again quickly, which I found it slightly too mechanically demanding on my part to put her in S tier myself. Exactly like ET said, you've got to be careful to sort of clear up after yourself when you're sort of clearing a side, like clear it fully, because otherwise your Nidus network's gonna get eaten. And the other thing is air is the problem as always, and like although Kerrigan is extremely mobile because of the network, like the attack waves are a nuisance on this in that you will be flitting around with Kerrigan an awful lot, regardless of sort of what comp you end up going for. I had her in A tier.
What do you think about A tier, Edwin? Are you going to make a case for S?
I mean, yeah, it's I guess mechanically demanding. I don't struggle against air too terribly much most of the time with Kerrigan. I think you can go mutas or hydras here, and you'll probably be fine because again, like almost nothing affects your actual combat. It's just the propagators. Like Moment of Silence is technically a thing, but there's not a ton of hybrid. There's one hybrid in the second set, 2 or 3 in the third set, and then a few in the fourth. But by the time you're to the fourth set, you should be pretty much all set up. And you can, especially with Mutalisk, just splash damage them down, hit a unit near them and back up, and you're in and out. But I mean, I'm not gonna die on the sword of S tier if it's too much for the average player. I get that.
I was going to say I have a distinct feeling the difference here could be the fact that I suspect ET's APM is like literally 10 times mine.
Literally 10 times. Wait, if you have an APM of, let's say 60, are you saying Edwin has an
Mine's
APM
like
of
very
600?
firmly rooted in the double digits.
So, are we okay with A?
Yeah, A is fine.
And we want third prestige?
I would, yeah. I mean,
all right.
Yeah.
So you'll never guess which prestige I used. Well, you probably could. I used no prestige, and I did the hop, the leap, psionic shift thing. I queued up the psionic shift after the leap, so Kerrigan can do 2 attacks at once, which can deal with a poop if you're fast enough. I did that primarily because the third prestige bores me a little bit when just zapping the poop. I want a little fun in my life and my videos as well. So if you want to see me try and fail at trying to be a good player, you can watch that video. But anyway, yeah, third prestige generally safer if you're a little chicken. Let's move on. Nova, where do we have him?
So Nova has a lot of tools here. Like there is her tanks are extremely good against propagators. Um, what I would suggest, however, is to be careful around how you deploy spider mines, because one propagator, okay, two propagators with moment of silence can cause some pretty massive issues. So my sort of strategy here was to use tanks, but not use the spider mines on them basically, and the tank range is sufficient that you're generally okay. Nova's snipe is also excellent, exactly the same as Kerrigan, like a double tap from Nova, and that does propagators without any dramas. And then again, because your tanks are so good, pushing with tanks and with liberators is actually a very, very straightforward way of just dealing with the sort of thrasher areas themselves. With all of that being said, you also then have some nice like backup tools of sort of Griffin airstrike and airlift for if you do end up in a sort of slightly more emergency situation. So she's, you know, not only got a pretty decent like comps to deal with this, but she's also got some pretty good like emergency get out of jail free cards as well. So I was playing P1, which I felt just Nova herself is just slightly better basically on P1. And I had her in A tier, and I reckon she's not that dissimilar to sort of a Kerrigan or an Abathur. Really, she's just, I think, a bit less like micro intensive and a bit more relaxed to play.
Bit blonder. What do you think, Edwin Home?
Blonder.
Yeah, I had her in A tier. I owned the libs this week. A lot of liberators, and and yeah, I mean, two liberators is enough to comfortably kill a propagator. Prior to +1, it's a full two volleys, and then I think it's 3 shots will kill them from liberators. So once you have a +1 or +2 attack, so it's pretty easy to split just a couple off towards that ramp, and most of the props are going to spawn where the fourth set is or behind it, in my experience. So you have two there, you have a couple with your main army, and then if you need to, you can always pull back home and deal with any that come from the right or then the left later on. So I had her in A tier because Nova's big thing is she is relatively slow. Her character moves quite slowly, her hero unit, and the Liberators are, for air units at least, pretty slow as well. So if you aren't in position, it can take quite a while to get there and then get back to where you need to be. So I had her in A tier, not quite S.
All right, but Nova has two big things, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Liberators and the Super Cloak when you're going third Prestige. Nova's two big things. Anyway, S tier, or not S tier, A tier for Nova. Unanimous. Third Prestige, right? Or you want to go first one?
You can do either.
I just said Super Cloak, but you can totally do first one.
Yeah, either one's fine.
All right, so let's move on. Raynor, where do we have him?
Raynor doesn't really like the first propagator too terribly much, but from there, vultures and his spider mines should do well enough, and then he can kind of clear the map relatively straightforwardly. He has pretty good range on his units. So, and I mean, you have siege tanks and bunkers if you want to go that way for defense as well. Just make sure you have enough. And so he'll do all right. I'm not a Raynor lover myself, so I only had him in A tier. But I mean, there could be an argument for S. I just, again, not my cup of tea. So
All right, A tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I'm not really a Raynor lover either. I had him ranked a little bit lower only because of the sort of, again, the demands of playing the commander. I was toying with some methods like concussive shells out of bunkers to deal with propagators, potentially some sort of mech air combo for pushing. So whether you wanted, like, I mean, Vikings are pretty good on this map again, particularly if you are decent with your pathing, spider mines for defense, etc. But you do have the two propagator at a time issue, which you don't have with bunkers. So I actually had Raynor in B tier.
What do you think about B tier, Edwin Home?
it feels a little low. Again, like you're 90% of the time only worried about one angle, even with two propagators. Like at least in my experience across quite a few games playing this, they pretty much always come from the fourth set. So at most, every now and then, yeah, you might have two from different angles, but you're past the. I mean, it's 15 minutes where two start spawning.
Yeah,
You
I think
should be
past
able to have
15,
like the whole upper left pretty much cleared of all buildings
you
at that
should.
point. In which case,
Oh yeah,
main area,
definitely.
and then your army's on the right, and then the right side is fully cleared, and then they're all coming from the same spot. So for me, I don't think the two angles is going to be much of an issue because again, there should only be two angles by the time the props come out, and one of those angles should be where you're actually pushing. Um, but I mean, I don't I think he's probably at least A tier. It is a little more mechanically demanding, but that's Raynor for you.
I'm Yeah, I am perfectly happy to defer to you on this one, mate. You'll have played a lot more than this than me. I sort of where I was looking at several of the commanders, Raynor being one of them here, is kind of basically trying to differentiate a little bit between some of the sort of A tier commanders in particular, as to like, someone like a Nova being not particularly mechanically demanding, and then in my experience, a Raynor. So like, yeah, that was kind of my thought process, but I'm perfectly happy to put him in A.
Okay. I am a Raynor lover because I like playing regular brutal, and he is very fun in regular brutal. And I don't personally think he's too far off from A. I personally have him B, but I don't think he's too far from A because yes, he is more demanding. But what I would do regarding poop is just do a worker wall, so I don't have to even use spider mines. Just do a worker wall with some depots and some bio behind it, while the rest are just attack moving on the other side. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Anyway, both of you agree with A. Let's put Raynor in A. Prestige wise, no prestige, right?
Yeah, no, it's probably P0.
All right, let's move on. Stet boy, where do we have him?
So Stetmann has a Stetolite problem, but like P2 actually does deal quite well with it. Like the reality to playing P2 Stetmann is you're not going to be putting Stetolites where you're not going. So you know, sort of one of those ones that as long as you are basically playing the map quite normally and not trying to snipe thrashers with corruptors or anything like that, then actually you're basically going to be pushing in with Super Gary, putting Stetlites down to facilitate him moving, and then clearing the entire area out before you come back. So kind of exactly like ET said with Raynor, like you don't have the traditional Stetmann problems of Stetlites being pooped. Um, you've also got some banelings if you want to use them. Like they are decent particularly in the early game at sort of safeguarding you if you have a concern around propagators. But I personally don't think they're particularly necessary. Um, and if you still have concerns around all of that, then you do have P1, where realistically just your pushing power is reduced, but you don't have the satellite problem. So I think Stetmann is probably better than he looks on paper, albeit like yeah, he sort of does play quite normally. Like I had him sort of A to B tier.
What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, I had him in A tier because, yeah, I mean, the only problem Stetmann's going to have here potentially is Stetelite's getting eaten. So if you're a gamer, you can go P2 and just make sure you're actually diligent about clearing the buildings on the left and then have Stetmann or some Banelings in front of the final set of Thrashers while you clear the right. And then it's just, walking up and killing everything with Super Gary, basically. So if you I honestly think you'd probably do incredibly well on P1 as well if you wanted to be just lazy about it. Don't have to worry about it. But I think P2 will do great anyways because, yeah, I mean, you just as long as you actually clear the buildings, you won't really be in trouble. So I had him in A tier.
All right, both of you had Stetboy in A tier. Let's put Stetboy in A tier. Second prestige, as both of you agreed. Let's move on. Stukov, where do we have him?
Stukov, no P3 for you guys this week. Haha. P1, Frightful Flesh Welder. It's a lot more fun anyways. Just mass Diamondback, really. Diamondbacks do incredibly against Propagators. It's not really very hard to get out You just need like one Diamondback to kill the first prop, and that's not hard to get out. And then you can clear your expansion, and you're off to the races. Just split off like a small pack of Diamondbacks towards the center of the map while you're going up to clear the left and then the right, and they'll deal with the Propagators coming from the middle. And it's pretty smooth sailing. So I actually had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I used exactly the same strategy. P1 Stukov is much more fun. I think that exactly like ET said, like a pack of 3 Diamondbacks is plenty. To deal with Propagators. The great thing is they move so fast and they shoot whilst moving that like Moment of Silence, if you're at all careful with it, is literally just not a thing, which is ideal. Having said that, I didn't think he was quite S tier. And this may be a mechanical failing on my part once more, but like I found that effectively trying to push the 4th ramp with mass Diamondbacks, if you haven't softened it up already, particularly if you get a little bit unlucky with your Propagator spawn timing, can be a bit of a nuisance. You can take sort of mass casualties on that ramp, basically. But as I say, like potentially a mechanical failing. I had him in A tier. I think there are a few pitfalls you can fall into. You do have to be a little bit careful of your top bar usage here, in terms of like the location and timing around propagator spawns, etc. So yeah, I had him in A tier, although he was easy enough to play that I could be convinced, I suspect.
Are you gonna make a case for S tier at home?
Yeah, I mean, you just wait until Propagators have just been killed, and then you pop the Apocalypse. You can really even pop like double infest structure at that point if you want to, and you'll have time for it to wear out before the next set of Propagators, and then that's that ramp taken care of. At least that's how I had it. I was still a little careful about the Alexander. Alexander just lasts like 8 years, so you always want to be a little careful calling it in when Propagators are
I
around.
wish
But
Alexander lasted 8 years.
it's pretty close. It's not far off.
It didn't even last 8 years in the campaign.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, if you just pop Apocalypse, a couple of infest structures on whatever's up at the top of the ramp, and then you push in with the Diamondbacks, I didn't have any trouble pushing up from there. And I will say, I was up against Disruptor Reaver comp, which is like about as painful as it gets for Diamondbacks, and it was still pretty easy. So that made it like, well, if this was like any other army composition, I'm pretty sure I would have just annihilated it. So.
Yeah, fair one. Yeah, why not? We need to thin out A tier a little bit. So yeah, let's go with. I'm happy with S tier for Stukov. It was one of the easier commanders to play this week.
Okay, Stukov S. Let's put him in there. Prestige twice, first one.
Yes.
Wait and see, guys. I'm gonna use third Prestige Stukov. It's gonna be amazing. Gonna mauled so much. Take 2 hours to beat the mutation.
I watched that solo run.
Let's move on. Swann, where do we have him?
So Swann plays very similarly to Karax, I think. The only difficulty that he has over Karax is that he does have to send units. Like you can't just sort of top bar snipe stuff. Having said that, his top bar is extremely useful. So I was playing P0 because I like sort of getting full use out of Swann's top bar. 4 or 5 blaster billies at the top of ramps deal with propagators without any dramas. You literally just don't need to worry about them for the entirety of the game. I possibly got my first attempt at this slightly wrong because I was trying to play the same as Karax and basically absorb units and unit waves at home. I think you'd be better off actually building up mass Wraith much faster, so you've got a little bit more pushing power into the bases as well. So I had Swann in A tier, and yeah, I was playing P0, but I can totally appreciate that other prestiges would be viable, particularly P1, I suspect.
What do you think, Home?
Yeah, I mean, I would think just P2 over P0 and then P1 as an option because Going rates, at least in my experience, the extra gas cost, you're never going to run out of gas anyways. It's a mineral
True.
starved composition, especially if you're building some blaster abilities at home. So I'd say P2 or P1 because the slow laser is nice
Slowing
for
the
the
poop.
propagators, but yeah, it's not necessary. And I do like top bars, but you definitely could go P1, I think, if that's your cup of tea, because I know it is a lot of people's cup of tea. And then just Mass Wraith is gonna kind of walk over everything. So I had him in S tier.
All right. Both of you had him S tier?
I had him in A tier.
Oh yeah, okay.
Again, I'm not against S tier for Swann. I can see it. It's pretty straightforward. Again, it was sort of the Wraith ramp where I felt that like you could struggle with it. But how does he stack up against?
Yeah, it's up to
think,
you. If it's not unanimous, it's not S.
Yeah.
So
I think he's basically the same as Karax, but not as good. And I genuinely don't think he is as good. I think he is harder to play with. So I'm inclined to not budge on this one and say A tier.
Fine by me.
Okay.
I do think he's significantly better than like Abathur. You actually have to worry about luring them into toxic nests and things like that. Whereas a couple blaster abilities at home, propagators are done. There's no more propagators to
I
worry
thought Poops actively wanted
Abathur's
to go
A tier.
to the toxic nests, don't they?
No, I guess they do. They do. So there is that. But you do have to be constantly replacing them. I mean, it's like what, 3 blaster abilities probably, especially with P2 with the increased range and attack speed and everything. Like it's 2 or 3 blaster
You
abilities.
should
at
get
each
4
ramp
for
and you're done.
safety. But
yeah, I was going to say
can.
when they get more health later on, it can get a bit sketchy. But like, yeah, I'm not debating that he's not better than Abathur, and I certainly would have him very near the top of A tier.
Yeah, that's fine.
I also don't think he's as easy to use as the S tier commanders.
That's fair. He's probably not.
Okay, so not unanimous, therefore not S. Let's put Swann in A tier. Prestige-wise, second and first, or anything that he can make work. Let's move on. Tychus, where do we have him?
Tychus has perfect ability to split things up with P2, and Sam can just grenade them and they're gone. So Propagators, easy, completely free. And the rest of the map, easy, completely free because it's Tychus, so I had him in S tier.
All right. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, exactly the same. P2, super easy. Get Sam out first, which you wouldn't do normally, but other than that, you are literally playing exactly the same as normal. Make sure, particularly on the fourth set of thrashers, that you are using your medivac drops, using the Odin big red button, to make sure that you're not getting caught in moment of silence, because there are enough hybrids and thrashers up there that it can be a problem if you're not careful. But other than that, yeah, he does play basically completely normally, and as we know, Sam is a bit of a golden bullet for propagators basically. So yeah, I had him in S tier as well.
All right, no problems. Tychus S tier, second prestige. Moving on, Vorazun, where do we have him?
Vorazun's a bit problematic, but she does actually have some interesting tools which you don't normally use, which is nice. Black holes and stasis wards, particularly with the stasis calibration upgrade, which is the one where you're allowed to sort of shoot stuff that's been stasised, if that really is a word. They are both really useful against propagators, and it means that you can effectively just basically leave a bit of static at home if you want to in order to deal with them. Obviously, that does rely on you like remembering to replace stasis wards and stuff like that. So it's sort of not completely free, but it is a pretty low maintenance way of dealing with it. Time stop to clear. I have a question actually. In fact, I've got 2 questions about Vorazun because I didn't get to sort of experiment with her properly.
Sorry, you're only allowed 1 question. Sorry, that's the rules.
Oh, I've got 2 really good ones.
All right. Let's hear
it. Obviously, you want to use time stop to clear the thrashers. My assumption, however, is that moment of silence still goes off during a time stop.
Oh yes, it still does.
Yeah, so that is going to be a nuisance. And then the only other one that I was sort of just a bit of mental gymnastics that I was wandering around is whether disruption web works on propagators.
Yes, same as disabling cloud. Works, totally works.
Oh, okay. So that's another really nice thing then, because the Vorazun typical weakness against air means you are going to want to be getting out Corsairs anyhow. So yeah, I do think she's got some tools, but I also do think that clearing is going to be a bit of a pain. So I had her in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Espenholm?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to account for my anti-Vorazun bias, so I put her in A tier, but I mean, I wouldn't be terribly opposed to B tier. I think obviously Stalkers will do completely fine as well against Propagators. Just a small pack of Stalkers you can blink away. They have good single target damage. The DTs do have ranged melee spellcaster, right? So
Shadow Fury.
their whirl attack, Shadow
That's
Fury, is just going to kill Propagators pretty easily, but it's a fairly long cooldown, so it does hurt to use that against Propagators. But then time stop to clear, so I don't know. I think she'll do fairly well, but I mean we are missing someone in B tier, so if anyone's going to go there out of these next three, it would be her. So I guess I'm fine with that.
All right, Vorazun goes down to B tier because no one's in B tier. Oh my Donnie. All right, she has one prestige, third one. I personally had Vorazun in A tier because I would just use the Shadow Free to defend, and then for offense, I wouldn't even bother with any of the defenders or static or buildings. I would just group my Dark Templar, make 4 groups of Dark Templar, and then activate time stop. Right click each group to a Thrasher, and then shift click back. That's it. That's
Yep.
what I do
Yeah,
every
you can definitely do
time.
that.
That's what I do for Vorazun every time Hammerlad mutations come up. But B tier, it's your tier list, not mine. So yeah, there you go. Vorazun B tier. Let's move on to someone that's not B tier. Zagara. Where do we have him?
Yeah, Zagara has Banelings, and so she's S tier.
All right. What do you think, Joni?
Oh, and she has Bio Launchers. Bio Launchers mentioned.
Yeah, like most of Zagara's units explode, which does massively help on this. Yeah,
All
base
right.
for props, good for
Let's.
thrashers, like very easy. Make bile launchers if you want to soften up the props for no reason other than mentioning them in a tier list.
All right. Let's move on. Zeratul. Oh wait, yeah. Zeratul. Oh wait, first prestige. Zeratul. Where do we have him?
Yeah, Zeratul is also very good. His cannons are very good. P3 is also super viable on this. Like P3 kites propagators really nicely. Like the power ramp can be a little bit rough. You do need to build sort of cannons at home to look after stuff. But actually, I had a lot of fun playing P3 because you are basically just hero soloing mutation, and kind of ignoring propagators. To be honest, his monoliths are really useful because they slow down propagators. Having said that, like P2 is also going to be super viable. Your cannons ramp quicker than the propagators do. So yeah, and other than that, he basically plays completely normally. So yeah, I had Zeratul and Esther.
What do you think, Espenholm?
Yeah, I think S tier works. You can even, I mean, just mass stalkers will do plenty against propagators. Just a pack of those, you can blink them around to deal extra damage, and they're very good single target damage. Anything but P1, but also probably even P1 is S tier here. So
All right. Zeratul S tier. Prestige wise, what do you want?
literally any of them, I would say.
Any of
Yeah.
them? Okay. Do we have a double S?
No, I don't
Really?
think so.
Not Arcturus?
I mean,
Manx.
I mean, you still have to be a little careful with the props.
Yeah.
Okay. So who's top of S?
Minsk.
Manx is top of S.
All right. Second in S.
Probably Tychus.
Um,
Or no, sorry, Zagara. Forget about her sometimes. And then Tychus.
Cage's not gonna like hearing that. Calling Zagar forgettable. And then
I think Karax.
Yeah.
Karax
high up there.
before Dehaka?
Um,
Mm, They both
I do
they
think,
both can basically ignore the propagators, just in slightly different ways. I
yeah,
think
but then I
Dehaka
think
can
the
still.
the map for Dehaka is way easier to clear than it is for Karax. Like it's a little, you can still do it as Karax, obviously, but like the Dehaka can just kind of A move to the map while ignoring the propagators, right? Whereas I think
Yeah,
Karax
whereas
has an easier time even with the propagators, but then actually just winning the map is more of a pain. So I'd say probably Dehaka
Yeah,
above.
exactly. I think I'm happy with Dehaka on balance. Yeah, fine. Either or.
And then just probably Stukov at the bottom, and then that's correct, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
All right, top of A.
Swann?
Yes.
Oh, then
I,
Abathur.
I'd be inclined to go with, like, I think maybe a Nova. I personally found Nova easier to play than Abathur or Alarak. But that
Archery?
again, that may be me.
No, Nova or Alarak?
I think Nova's easier than Alarak.
She is blonder than Alarak this week. Then
I think Stetmann's probably easier than the three above him.
Stet voice blonder than Horner.
Yep. I think
And
that
he's
probably, well, I think maybe Kerrigan above Han and Horner. That
Yeah,
would
I was just going to
work.
say I think Kerrigan above Hannah Horner. Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I'm.
Are you guys sure you want to stick Vorazun in B tier? Or not promote Artanis and Fenix to B tier so that Vorazun is company? Or are they that bad?
I mean,
Or average, I guess.
I honestly think Vorazun has like a significantly easier enough time than Artanis or Phoenix that she does belong a tier above them.
Okay. So who's top of C tier?
I think Artanis.
Artanis. All right, guys. That is our tier list for this week. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it, also do please leave it in a comment. I will see you guys next time.